Welcome to the Nourish to Thrive podcast, faith-forward, science-backed strategies for women who want more energy, less weight, and real answers. I'm your host, Tanya Pennington-Miller, a functional nutritional therapy practitioner and functional blood chemistry specialist with a master's degree in applied clinical nutrition. If you're tired of feeling dismissed by your doctor, confused by your labs, and stuck in survival mode, you're in the right place. Here, we simplify the science. We get to the root, and we anchor it all in truth, because God made your body to heal and thrive, not just survive. It just needs the right kind of support and less noise. Hello, my friend. Welcome into the Nourish to Thrive podcast. I am so glad you're here today. If you have been dragging yourself out of bed every morning, if you're reaching for caffeine just to make it through your day, or maybe you are staring at quote unquote normal lab results that don't match how exhausted you actually feel, I want you to take a deep breath, because today we're going to talk about what's really happening underneath all of that fatigue. We're going to unpack what stress is doing to your hormones, to your metabolism, and really just to your energy. And more importantly, I want to help you with how to find peace again for your body. And before you tune out thinking, well, I'm really not that stressed, I want you to hear me on this. Stress doesn't always look like a major crisis or some life-altering event. Sometimes it's just the pace you're living at. It's the pressure to keep everything together. It's the late nights, the skipped meals, the mental tabs that never close in your mind. I know you hear me on that. And even when we don't feel stressed, our bodies still sense that constant noise. Like our bodies keep score. And over time, that quiet strain can be just as depleting as the really big stuff. And I'm not sharing this out of theory. I share it because I lived it. Years ago, I hit a wall. And I'm telling you, the kind of wall that you cannot outwork or outwill your way through. And I know some of you are standing in front of that same wall right now. You're wondering what's wrong, and you don't know how to find your way back. So before we dive into the science, I want to take you back to that season in my own life, because that season completely changed how I view stress and hormones and what healing really means. Now, if you've listened to my very first episode, then you've heard me share the fuller version of what I'm going to talk about today. You know, the one that really marked the turning point in my own health journey. So I'm not going to go into every detail again here. You can always go back and listen to that if you haven't. But I do want to give you a snapshot of what that season looked like for me, because I know some of you are going to see yourself in this. So years ago, I sat in a doctor's office after asking her to run every lab she possibly could. I didn't even know what that meant at that time. I just knew I needed answers because I was exhausted. I was unmotivated. I was slowly gaining weight. My hair was thinning. I had this lower belly pooch that just felt impossible to lose. And if I'm being really honest, my sex drive had completely disappeared. And that was really hard for me to admit, because I was really pretty newly married. And I was married to the most wonderful and incredibly supportive man there is. But I felt at that time that I could have just been content being roommates with him. It wasn't that I didn't love him. It was that my body had nothing left to give. And at that time, I didn't understand that adrenal exhaustion can push cortisol so far out of balance that it completely shuts down your intimate desires. And some of you are there right now. Of course, no one had ever mentioned that low libido could be connected to, our stress physiology, especially not in the conventional medicine world. So I really felt broken at the time. Like, I actually felt ashamed. And the irony is that I was coaching at this time figure athletes, physique athletes, bikini athletes. I was coaching them to step on stage at their peak conditioning during this time. I mean, I had been a national figure competitor myself. I knew discipline. And I knew what it looked like when a body was responding. right? But mine had stopped and I could not figure out why. So when the doctor finally handed me my lab results, I was literally bracing myself for answers. Like I just knew something was going to show up. And instead, she smiled at me and she tossed my labs over and she said, "You're going to live to be 100 years old. Your labs are perfect. I wish I had your labs." And I vaguely remember her mentioning that my vitamin D was a little low, but I was otherwise a picture of health. And I remember just sitting there, like staring at these papers in my hands and thinking, how can everything look fine when I feel like I'm falling apart? Like I feel like I'm just a shell of who I was. And I left that office holding this folder of paperwork that said normal, but there was nothing normal about how I felt. And that very moment set me on a path to figure out what was actually happening inside my body. And when I finally found a functional practitioner who ran deeper labs, and she read them differently, everything made sense. I wasn't just tired. I was in adrenal exhaustion. My thyroid had slowed down. My progesterone and my testosterone were low. And my body was showing every sign of being stuck in survival mode. And I remember so clearly, she placed her hands on either side of my face and she looked in my eyes and she said, "I never want to hear you call yourself lazy again." Because I remember giving her that description. Like, I just feel like I've become lazy. I used to love getting up in the morning and going for a run. I still do it. I still make myself do it, but I really don't want to. And I finally, in that very moment, I felt seen. I felt validated. I felt like, okay, I finally have direction. And when I look back now, I can see that the adrenal exhaustion was really the first domino to fall, because once that happened, everything else followed. My thyroid slowed down. My hormones were dropping. My metabolism stalled. This is why my weight was creeping up, and no matter how clean I ate or how hard I trained, it didn't matter. My energy had completely disappeared. But the part that I really want you to hear out of all of this is that healing is possible. Okay, it did not happen for me overnight. It didn't come from the next diet or some protocol I put myself on. It came from slowing down enough to actually listen to my body. And I started nourishing instead of restricting. I prioritized resting instead of pushing. Literally praying instead of panicking. And I know that this can be so hard to hear for my type A ladies out there, but I really need you to hear it. Little by little, my body began to trust me again. My weight started to drop. My energy came back. My mind was feeling more clear. It's like I finally started to feel at home in my body again for the first time in years. And then years later, this didn't happen right away, but years later, after nearly a decade of infertility, I became pregnant naturally. Something the doctor said would never happen. That pregnancy wasn't just a miracle, although it was. It was proof of what happens when you stop fighting your body and you start listening to it. Because when you bring your body back into alignment with how God designed it to function, with nourishment, with rest, with peace, then restoration can follow. And that's what I want to help you understand today, what stress is really doing to your hormones and your metabolism, and why just pushing through might be the most damaging advice that you could ever give a woman whose body is already crying for rest. Trust me, I did it. I've been there. I pushed through. And I just kept digging myself deeper and deeper. So I hope you're ready, because we're going to dig in. So let's talk about what's really happening when stress takes over your body. Your adrenal glands are these two really small, kind of triangle-shaped glands that sit right on top of your kidneys. And they might be tiny, but they play a huge role in your energy, in your mood, your hormones, and your metabolism. Now, their main job is to help your body respond to stress through a hormone called cortisol. We've all heard of cortisol. Cortisol gets a bad rap a lot of times, but it is not inherently bad. In fact, we need it for survival. It's what helps you wake up in the morning. It keeps your blood sugar stable. It helps you handle challenges throughout your days. Okay, but there is a catch. Cortisol was designed for short bursts of stress, not the kind that never lets up. And this is the tricky part. Stress doesn't always look like, some big trauma in your life. Sometimes it looks like passion. It looks like purpose. It looks like doing work that you love so much that you didn't even realize it was draining you. And that was me. For 10 years, I owned a brick and mortar supplement and nutrition store. At one point, I actually had 2 locations, multiple employees, and I felt responsible for everyone's well-being. We hosted nutrition seminars. We ran weight loss challenges. We organized the largest CrossFit competition in the Valley for 3 years in a row. I was coaching a full team of athletes. I was competing myself, traveling across the country to compete in CrossFit competitions. And let me be clear, I loved it. I loved every bit of it. But what I didn't realize was that my body didn't know the difference between good stress and bad stress. It just knew I never stopped. So even though my mind felt so fulfilled, my physiology was on this high alert, like 24/7. And that constant output kept my adrenals in overdrive, just flooding my system with cortisol until everything started to unravel. And that communication chain between the brain and the adrenal glands is called the HPA axis. This is your hypothalamus, pituitary, and adrenals. And it is what keeps you functioning when you're in survival mode. I want you to think of it kind of like a group chat between your brain and your stress glands. So the way it works is your hypothalamus in your brain senses stress and it sends a message to the pituitary. The pituitary passes on that message down to your adrenals. The adrenals respond by releasing cortisol and adrenaline to help you survive. I mean, it's really a beautiful thing. In the short term, this is absolutely brilliant. It raises your heart rate, pumps more blood to your muscles, gives you that quick energy to handle whatever is in front of you. But when stress never turns off, when your nervous system stays in that high alert mode day after day, that same system becomes your body's biggest drain. Your brain keeps sending the signal and your adrenals keep pumping out the cortisol. And over time, your entire hormone network gets thrown off balance. So when cortisol stays elevated for too long, your body starts stealing resources from other systems just to keep up. It's like robbing Peter to pay Paul, right? Eventually, the whole system is going to run dry. And here's kind of a snapshot of what that looks like. The thyroid function is going to slow down. The body starts conserving energy by lowering your metabolism. So you will start producing less thyroid hormone. Progesterone drops. The body diverts raw materials away from sex hormone production and into cortisol production. It's going to prioritize cortisol production over sex hormone production. Blood sugar swings are going to happen because cortisol raises glucose for energy during times of stress, which will lead to cravings and then crashes later. Your sleep will then become disrupted because high cortisol at night keeps your brain wired when it should be resting. That was huge for me. I just remember lying awake at night. I mean, it's like I just could not sleep. I just couldn't. Mind would just be racing. And then ensues the inflammation. The immune system becomes dysregulated, which can trigger or worsen autoimmune conditions. So maybe you were never aware of an autoimmune condition, and this could be the very thing that makes it fire up. And before you know it, you're feeling exactly like I did. You're exhausted, you're anxious, you're puffy, you're wondering why your body isn't responding to anything the way it used to. And this is why we can't just look at isolated hormones like estrogen or thyroid hormones and call it a day. Because if the adrenals, the body's literal stress command center, are out of rhythm, everything downstream is going to be affected. Your adrenals are like the conductor of the orchestra. When they're steady, every system plays in harmony. When they're overwhelmed, everything else starts playing off beat. And if that's you, feeling out of sync, feeling tired but restless, craving control but actually needing calm, I want you to know it's not your body working against you. It's actually waiting for you to change the environment that it's been surviving in. Because when you start creating that safety again, and you do that through nourishment and rest and finding a rhythm, your body stops fighting to survive and it starts remembering how to thrive. So let's talk about how cortisol starts rewriting the script for your thyroid, your blood sugar, your sex hormones. And then let's also talk about what it looks like to bring that rhythm back into balance. And here's what I love most about the way God designed the body. He built in a rhythm for recovery. Your adrenals were never meant to live in overdrive. They're designed to respond and then return to rest. And it's when we skip the rest, when we stay in the constant output, that dysfunction begins to take root. Because we weren't created to run on fear or pressure. And that's why this journey isn't about removing every stressor from your life. That's not possible. It's about teaching your body to return to the safety that it was designed for. That place of steady breath, of trust, of peace. Because when you live in rhythm with how God created you, your body doesn't just function better, although it will, but it flourishes. We thrive. So let's go into a little bit more detail about what happens when stress never lets up. When cortisol stays elevated for too long, it doesn't just make you feel tense or anxious, although it does make you feel that way. It starts pulling on every other hormone system in your body. So let's talk about blood sugar and energy crashes. Cortisol's first job is to raise blood sugar so that your body has quick energy to deal with a perceived threat. It's very helpful in short bursts. But when you're constantly stressed, that blood sugar roller coaster never ends. You might start noticing energy crashes mid-afternoon. You might notice irritability if you go too long without eating, right? Getting hangry. You might notice some nighttime cravings. That's your body trying to stabilize blood sugar because cortisol keeps signaling, we're not safe. We're not safe. Over time, this will create insulin resistance, where your cells stop listening to insulin. Your body holds on to fat more easily and your metabolism slows down. And this is one of the biggest reasons women feel like they're doing everything right, but they still can't lose weight. Next, let's talk about thyroid and the metabolic slowdown. When cortisol is high, your body shifts into energy conservation mode. The brain tells the thyroid to slow down production of thyroid hormones because from your body's perspective, this isn't the time to burn calories. This is actually the time to conserve calories because we're just trying to survive. And this is why stress and adrenal dysfunction often show up as low thyroid hormone on your labs. And some of the symptoms you might notice will be fatigue, cold hands and feet, constipation, brain fog, weight gain. Now, your labs may conventionally still read that they're quote unquote normal, but functionally speaking, we know that they are depressed. We know they are low. Now, something else that can happen, sometimes we see these, quote unquote normal thyroid numbers, but what we don't see is that cortisol can also block the conversion of T4 to T3. Now, T3 is your active thyroid hormone that your cells can actually use. But T4 has to be converted into T3. So when we have this elevated cortisol consistently, chronically, we start to have trouble converting T4 into T3. So your thyroid could look okay on paper, but your metabolism might be running at half speed. We don't know this unless we test your reverse T3. which conventional medicine will never test, not unless you're in the ICU. Then they test it. Because when you are on life support, your reverse T3 elevates. The purpose of reverse T3 elevating, it's like this brake. It's like your body hitting the brakes and saying, don't burn calories, right? Because if you're on bed rest, if you're on life support, we need to not burn calories, right? Because we'll just completely waste away, muscle and all. So your body says, conserve, 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 and we'll see this elevation in reverse T3. Well, we're seeing this happen, not just in the ICU, with women like you and I, but we don't know unless we test. Next, let's talk about what stress does to your sex hormones. Progesterone, estrogen, and testosterone. Your body uses the same raw materials to make cortisol that it uses to make sex hormones. So when stress is high, your body starts diverting those building blocks away from reproduction and into survival. It's actually called the pregnenolone steal. And it's one of the main reasons women who are in chronic stress, they see their cycles change, sex drive drops, PMS, or even perimenopausal symptoms get worse. It's not your body malfunctioning, it's just prioritizing safety. And this is where many women start to feel that wired but tired feeling. You're exhausted, but you also can't wind down. You eventually crash at night, but then your brain won't stop spinning. That cortisol dysregulation, your rhythm is literally flipped upside down. Cortisol should be highest first thing in the morning when you wake up. And then it should gradually drop throughout the day. But when we're in burnout, it often flattens out where it's like too low in the morning and then too high at night. And it is going to leave you drained and restless all at the same time. I was in that very place. And I want to talk about why conventional medicine misses it, why they did miss it with me. And this is where our system fails so many women. When I sat in my doctor's office all those years ago, desperate for answers, I walked out with a stack of labs that said normal. She said my thyroid numbers looked fine. My hormones actually weren't even tested. And neither was my cortisol. And because nothing was technically flagged red on those results, I was told I was healthy, but I didn't feel healthy. I felt exhausted, inflamed, puffy, like emotionally flat. It was just like my spark was gone. And here's what I've learned since then. The reason my labs looked fine is because conventional medicine doesn't actually measure function. Like they just measure disease. They're looking for pathology, for something broken enough to diagnose, not for a system that is dysregulated, that is depleted, or is barely hanging on. So when your thyroid hasn't completely shut down yet, or your cortisol hasn't tanked entirely, you're told you're fine. Conventional doctors are not even running the right tests in the first place. They're probably going to test your TSH, but they're not going to test your free T3. They certainly are not going to retest your reverse T3. And it's not very likely that you'll get your thyroid antibodies tested. You need all of those. They might order an estrogen or a progesterone test, but not likely in the right phase of your cycle. And in terms of cortisol, even if they do run a cortisol test, it's going to be that one snapshot in time where they test your cortisol. They're not going to know what your cortisol diurnal rhythm is throughout the day. And that's where you see the real story. So if you're left chasing symptoms with no answers, if you're wondering how your labs can look quote unquote normal while you feel anything but normal, that's because the problem isn't your body, it's the lens that is being used to interpret it. Functional medicine looks deeper. We look at patterns, ratios, communication, how the body systems are talking to each other, and not whether one single marker is out of range. Because that communication breakdown is often where dysfunction begins. And once you understand that, you stop trying to fix your thyroid or your metabolism in isolation. And you start supporting the system as a whole. That's when true healing starts to unfold. So let's talk now about how all of this that we're talking about on paper, how does this show up on the outside? Because most women don't realize they're dealing with adrenal dysfunction. They just know that something feels off. And if you've ever told yourself, I'm just tired, I just need more willpower, I just need to get up earlier, I want you to really listen here. Because these are often the first signs that your adrenals are asking for help. So let's talk about some physical signs first. You wake up tired even after a full night's sleep. You feel wired at night, but sluggish in the morning. You rely on caffeine just to function. You get dizzy when you go from a sitting to standing position, and certainly from a lying to standing position. You crave salt, sugar, or both. You've noticed weight gain around your midsection. You feel puffy or inflamed. Your hair is thinning or shedding more than usual. And you've become more sensitive to the sunlight outside. Like you have to have your sunglasses when you go outside. Now let's talk about some hormonal and metabolic signs. Your periods may have become irregular or maybe even heavier. PMS symptoms have worsened, so mood swings, bloating, breast tenderness. You might feel just kind of off around ovulation, or you might have lost kind of your clear cycle patterns altogether. You're experiencing low libido, potentially even some vaginal dryness. You're hitting a wall at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. You can just feel like your metabolism has slowed to a crawl. And you might even be doing all the right things, right? You're eating well, you're moving your body, but nothing is changing. Let's talk about some emotional and cognitive signs. You feel anxious or overwhelmed for no clear reason. Your patience is short and your focus is just kind of scattered. You have moments of irritability or even panic that feel just uncharacteristic for yourself. You've lost motivation, your drive, that spark that used to come really easily, and you just feel emotionally flat. Like you're going through the motions, but you're not enjoying doing the things that you once loved doing. And then some sleep and recovery signs. So you can't fall asleep easily, or maybe you do fall asleep, but you're waking up around 2 to 3 a.m. with your mind racing. You do not feel rested after sleep. Exercise leaves you more depleted than energized. And I actually remember that I would go out and run and I would come back in. This would be on like a Saturday morning. I might do a longer run and I would just have to recover the remainder of the day just on our couch. You might get sick easily or take longer to recover from an illness, or you may rarely get sick at all because your immune system is just too taxed to even respond the way it should. And that was actually me. I didn't get sick at all during this time. And it kind of can lead you to believe that, you're healthy as a horse, right? But it's actually because your body has just stopped responding the way that it should. So if any of this sounds familiar, I want you to hear me on this. It's not all in your head. It's not just you getting older. It's your body's way of saying, I need a reset. And the good news about all of this is that this adrenal imbalance, this adrenal dysfunction, it's not a life sentence. When you start giving your body what it truly needs, the nourishment, the rest, the minerals, it can heal. So I want to talk a little bit about what that healing process looks like and, how you can start walking from a place of pressure into a place of peace. Okay. Healing your adrenals is not about adding another supplement. It's not about pushing harder in the gym. It's about finding and rebuilding your rhythm. It's about helping your body feel safe again, because safety is the foundation for healing. And when your nervous system and your adrenals are constantly on alert, your body cannot focus on anything else. It can't digest properly. It can't balance hormones. It can't repair tissues or regulate energy. It's simply trying to keep you alive. So this path back to balance is going to start with reminding your body that you are no longer in danger, that it is safe to rest, that it's safe to receive nourishment again. And here's what this looks like in practice. You want to start building some morning stability. How you start your morning sets the tone for your cortisol rhythm for the rest of the day. The most important thing you can do every morning is within 30 to 60 minutes of waking up, get natural light into your eyes. Step outside, even if it's just for a few minutes. Get that sunlight in your eyes. If it's dark where you live when you wake up, then you're going to want to get a light source. I use the Luminette light therapy glasses. I put those on for 20 to 30 minutes every morning. It's dark for hours after I wake up. I'll link those in the show notes in case you want to take a look at them. I like them because you can just wear them. They're glasses. You don't have to sit next to a light, but they do make lights, 10,000 lux lights that you can sit next to. You want to eat a protein and fat-rich breakfast to anchor your blood sugar, to tell your body that it is safe to use energy again. And this combination, this light and this nourishment is going to help reset your body's clock and gently train your adrenals to rise and fall the way they were designed to. Getting light into your eyes encourages cortisol production first thing. This is when cortisol should be the highest. Number 2 is you want to replenish your minerals. Adrenal fatigue is often mineral depletion in disguise. Okay, cortisol burns through key electrolytes, sodium, magnesium, potassium. And this is why so many women crave salt. I craved salt like crazy during that time. And you will feel better after a mineral-rich drink. So in the morning, I like to do what I call a morning mojo, and you can do about 16 ounces of room temp to warm water, add about a half a teaspoon of sea salt, squeeze in roughly a quarter of a lemon, add maybe a teaspoon of apple cider vinegar. The best way to start your day. And then throughout your day, you can add a pinch of sea salt to your water, sip on some electrolytes throughout the day. Focus on mineral-dense foods, avocados, leafy greens, bone broth. And then you can also use adrenal supportive nutrients like vitamin C, magnesium glycinate, B vitamins. But the foundation always starts with food and hydration. Number 3, this is a big one. You want to move in rhythm, not punishment. So if you are struggling with adrenal imbalance, intense exercise might make you feel worse and not better. That is a sign you need to listen to. Instead of chasing your calorie burn, I want you to focus on movement that supports recovery. Walking, strength training, stretching, breathing, doing all of this out in the sunlight. Movement should help your body exhale, not feel punished. When your adrenals heal, your strength and your stamina will return naturally. And from that place, you'll be able to train harder because you're recovered, okay? Not to earn your rest. I remember very clearly, I thought my watch that would track my speed and everything when I ran, I thought it was broken. Ladies, I went out and bought a new one because I thought the one that I was wearing was broken because it said that I was running so slow. But I physically just could not run at the pace that I was able to prior to my adrenal exhaustion. Your body will give you signs. We just have to know how to listen. Number 4, I want you to create a nervous system calm. Your adrenals listen to your nervous system more than anything else. If your days are filled with hurry, noise, constant stimulation, your cortisol is going to reflect that. So I want you to carve out small pauses in your day to breathe, to pray, to just slow down. Even 2 minutes of stillness between tasks that you have to do will send a signal to your body that you're safe again. And this is where spiritual meets physical, because God designed your body to rest in his peace, not live in constant striving. We can all carve out 2 minutes to focus on our breathing. Number 5, I want you to restore faith in his design. As you rebuild your rhythm, remember who created that rhythm in the first place. Your adrenals were not meant to run on nonstop. They were designed to rise with the morning, settle with the evening, and rest in between. That cycle mirrors the same rhythm God built into creation itself. Work and rest, light and dark, effort and renewal. Healing starts when we come back into agreement with that design. It's not about doing more. It's about learning to trust that God who made your body also made the blueprint for its restoration. Amen. So if you've been pushing, striving, ignoring your body's signals, this is your reminder that you can slow down. That peace is not passive, albeit it is powerful. And when your body feels safe again, healing can follow. That season of my life that I've been sharing with you felt like a breaking at the time. But looking back, it was really the start of my rebuilding. When we step outside of his rhythm for too long, our body is simply going to remind us it is time to come home. So if you're in that season right now where your body feels like it's fighting to keep up, I want you to hear me on this. It is not your lack of discipline. It is a call to return to peace. We were not meant to live in survival mode. We were meant to live in sync with the one who made us. So as you start rebuilding your rhythm with nourishment, with stillness, with morning light, with prayer, with rest, remember this. Your body isn't resisting you. It's responding to you. And when you start treating it with the same grace God gives you, everything begins to change. Because peace isn't just a mindset, it's a biological state your body was designed for. Let me pray for you. Lord, I lift up every woman who is listening right now who feels weary in her body, in her mind, in her spirit. Would you meet her right where she is? Lord, would you remind her that her worth isn't measured by productivity or by perfection, Lord, but by your presence. Lord, quiet the noise of striving and teach her what it means to rest in your rhythm again. Restore her energy, her peace, and her confidence in the body that you designed. Show her, Lord, how to nourish it with wisdom, to move it with grace, and to care for it with compassion. And above all, Lord, remind her that she's never walking this healing journey alone. You are her safety. You are her source. You are her peace. In your glorious name we pray. Amen. If this episode spoke to you, or if it gave you a little clarity about what your body's been trying to tell you, would you share it with a friend? Because so many women are walking around tired and anxious and discouraged, and they're just thinking that they are doing something wrong when really their bodies are just asking them for rest and for rhythm. And if you are ready to stop guessing and start truly understanding what's going on inside your body, I want to personally invite you to join the waitlist for my DNA Reset for Fat Loss Academy. This is a 12-week, faith-rooted, science-backed program that will help you uncover your own unique blueprint. It's going to help you identify what's keeping your metabolism stuck and finally learn how to work with your body again. We do a full comprehensive blood panel. You will get your own personal DNA test kit, and we are going to take those results and create your own personal roadmap. Enrollment is going to open at the start of 2026, and you can join the waitlist now. The link will be in the show notes so that you will be the first to know when the doors open. space is going to be incredibly limited. So make sure you keep your eyes and ears out for that. Thank you for spending this time with me today, for caring for your body with intention, and for choosing to walk this journey with faith and with wisdom. I will see you next week, my friend. That's it for today on the Nourish to Thrive podcast. If you found value here, I'd love for you to subscribe, leave a review, or send it to someone who's walking a similar path. Keep showing up, keep asking questions, and know that healing is possible, especially when you trust the one who designed your body to heal. Until next time, stay rooted in truth and nourished in grace.